Okay, just imagine for a second that you are at the absolute peak of your life. I mean, you have everything. We're talking wealth, power, a wonderful family, and everybody respects you. And then, in less than a year, poof, it's all gone. You find yourself in a prison cell waiting to be executed. What do? Well, about 1,500 years ago, a man in that exact spot wrote a book. And in that book, he tried to tackle one of the biggest questions there is. How can a person possibly be happy when they're suffering? And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? He's saying the worst part isn't just the misery of the present moment. No, it's being haunted by the memory of how good things used to be. That's the real sting. And that's the problem Boethius is trying to solve, right there from his prison cell. So, who was this guy? His full name was Anicius Manlius Severinus Boethius, and his story is honestly one of the most dramatic flip-flops of fortune you'll ever hear about. He was a huge deal back in early 6th century Rome, working for the Gothic king Theodoric. I mean, to say he had it all is a serious understatement. Boethius was basically a Renaissance man 1,000 years before the Renaissance even happened. He was a brilliant philosopher, a poet, a musician, a celebrated statesman. Oh, and he was the head of the entire government. He came from a noble family, had a great marriage, 2 amazing sons. His life was, for all intents and purposes, perfect. This list just shows you how far he had to fall. And fall he did. The speed of it is just dizzying. In 522, he's at the absolute top of the world, watching his 2 sons get this huge honor. He's the toast of the town. Just 1 year later, he's locked up in prison, accused of treason. By 524, he knows it's over. And it's from that place of total shock and grief that he picks up a pen and starts to write. So there he is, just wasting away in his cell, drowning in sadness, when he gets a visitor. But this is no ordinary visitor. He describes this tall, powerful woman whose eyes are like fire. He recognizes her as his guide and mentor through his whole life, Lady Philosophy herself. No, she's not there to say, oh, you poor thing. Not at all. She shows up like a doctor, and her diagnosis is pretty shocking. She tells him, look, your problem isn't that you lost your money or your freedom. The problem is you. You're sick. You've got a kind of spiritual amnesia. You've completely forgotten who you really are. So she starts her treatment with a few diagnostic questions to see just how deep the sickness goes. The first one is a big one. Does he know how the world is run? Is it all just random, pointless chaos, or is there some kind of rational order to everything? Then she pushes a little deeper. Okay, so maybe he thinks the world is governed by something, but does he know why? What's the point of it all? Where is everything heading? She's hinting that his own personal tragedy has made him lose sight of the bigger picture. And finally, boom, she hits him with the most important question. The reason he's forgotten how the universe works and what its purpose is because he's forgotten the most fundamental thing of all, his own true nature. This, she says, is the real root of all his pain. He thought his identity was his job, his money, his reputation, but he's forgotten that he's actually a rational soul, a part of a divine cosmic order. Okay, diagnosis complete. Now it's time for the cure. And step 1 is to just completely tear down Boethius's attachment to all the stuff he's lost. She's about to prove to him that those so-called gifts of fortune were never going to make him happy in the first place. She lays out the 5 main things that people chase after, thinking they'll find happiness. You've got wealth, high rank, power, fame, and pleasure. And then she just systematically takes a wrecking ball to each one. All right, let's start with wealth. We think money will make us independent, right? Free from worry. But does it? Or does it do the exact opposite? The more you have, the more you have to lose. The more security you need, the more you worry. It doesn't get rid of your wants, it just creates a whole new set of anxieties. Okay, what about a fancy title? You think that high office will bring you honor and respect? But philosophy argues that a title can't make a bad person good. In fact, all it really does is shine a big, bright spotlight on their flaws, making them look even worse. Real respect comes from who you are, from virtue, not from your job title. And power? Think about it. Tyrants seem like they have all the power in the world, but they live in constant fear. Fear of being overthrown, of being betrayed. They can't even get a good night's sleep. So what kind of power is that really? True power, she suggests, is being in control of yourself, not other people. Even fame, this idea of leaving a glorious legacy, is basically an illusion. Philosophy asks Boethius to zoom out. way out. Think about how massive the universe is. The entire planet that we live on is just a tiny speck. Your fame, she says, is limited to a tiny corner of that speck for a tiny blip in time. When you compare that to eternity, it's literally nothing. So, if happiness isn't in wealth or power or fame, then where in the world is it? Now that she's cleared away all the junk, all the false ideas, philosophy is ready to show Boethius the real path. She calls true happiness the supreme good. And here's the key. It's not a bunch of different things you have to collect. It's a single, perfect state of being that has everything you could ever want wrapped up inside it. Once you find it, there's nothing left to desire. So, what is it? And this is the absolute core of her whole argument. The ultimate source of real, lasting happiness, the supreme good, it's not something you can own. It's God. And by God, she's talking about the ultimate source of all goodness and order in the universe. So real happiness isn't found by looking outside yourself at all the flimsy gifts fortune can give and take away. It's found by turning inward and upward toward this eternal, unchanging source of everything good. Boethius was executed not long after he finished writing this. But his final thoughts, written there in the shadow of death, would end up shaping Western civilization for more than 1,000 years. The Consolation of Philosophy became one of the most popular and influential books in history. Seriously, for centuries it was required reading. It was translated by actual kings and queens. It became this incredible bridge that carried the ideas of Plato and Aristotle through the Middle Ages. And it took on these massive questions we still argue about today: fate, free will, why bad things happen to good people. Which brings us right back to that central question. Boethius, when he had everything taken from him, found his answer by looking beyond the material world. And his book leaves us with this really powerful challenge. If you were in his shoes, if fortune suddenly took everything away from you, what would be left? Where would you find your comfort, your consolation?
This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.